And most successful companies share one thing: they develop their people. The Success Launch Point makes it simple with on-demand courses, live coaching, and a thriving professional community. Your team will gain confidence, sharpen skills, and deliver more value, while staying loyal to the company that invests in them. To take your workforce to the next level, check out modernobserver.com/launchpoint.
We are lighting the candle, a world that works. Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Correll, and I'm here with my partner in empowerment, Jeremias. And today we are really blessed to have Dr. Mouhiba Jamousi. Did I say that correctly?
Correct, indeed. Yes.
Okay. I think my prior study in foreign languages helped out a little bit. With that said, let's do the introduction properly. Do you prefer to be called Dr. Jamousi, Mouhiba? What's your pleasure?
My
Mouhiba.
greatest pleasure, Mouhiba.
Mouhiba. Okay. So, Mouhiba, where are you in the world today?
I've been traveling lately. Right now, I'm in Oman, the Sultanate of Oman, in the Gulf area. Nice weather. I can go swimming. I still go swimming.
Yeah.
Fantastic weather.
That's wonderful. So, we're here celebrating the publishing of a book. And Jan and Mouhiba have both been co-authors, along with about 4 or 5 other people, it seems. Now, if you've been listening to the show, we've had several other authors on. We've had a ball with absolutely everyone. I don't expect for this to go any different than that, because we always have great conversations. So I think with that said, Mouhiba, would you give us a little bit of background on your chapter, what the book's all about, and really what it is for you?
Well, I have always lived simply. I've always lived in simplicity. So when the words simply live and live simply, these words resonated with me. And I thought, yeah, that's what I have always been. That's what I have always done.
Mm.
And simply became our cherished book, with each one of us writing a chapter. And the feeling I have is that we were writing together, different stories at the same time together. That is what made this book come, and I often refer to it as our first baby. Yeah.
I love the sound of that. So, what is living simply to you?
It's just do it. I say it in my chapter. You want to do something? Isn't it simple? Just do it. And I add, so what? If it turns out not to be the right thing to do, don't do it again. Learn a lesson and don't repeat the supposedly called mistake, because it's no longer a mistake when it teaches you something, when you learn something. Simply living is transparency for me. You want to be someone? Be that one. I've always been like this, from early years until my later age.
I love the sound of that. And to me, what I'm taking away from it is something that I learned probably a little later on in life than you did. And that is that worrying over a decision is the wrong place to put your energy. Either do it or don't, and once you've made the decision, you're now free to do something else or re-examine it later on. But more people get taught procrastination when they have simple decisions to make, and they think they need more information all the time. And I love what you said, the just do it. I wonder if anybody would ever use that as a company slogan. Oh, they may have. But I think the neat part of those three words is they can land differently and mean completely different things to different people. And what I hear you saying that's really empowering and powerful is that if you have an inspiration to do something, strike while the iron is hot. Take advantage of now, and don't worry about getting prepared for it, because you're either enough or you're not enough. And if you're enough, don't worry about it. And if you're not enough, don't worry about it, because there's something to learn.
Absolutely
I love
true.
it.
Absolutely.
That's the only way to learn. Like, I mean, if you do something and you're not enough, all of a sudden you realize, well, if I want to do this, I have to learn something. Like, I have to do something because I want to do it. And if I don't want to do it, okay, well, it's not, like you said, Bill, it's not worth my energy. So then I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's like, not thinking. It's always like I say to people, it's realizing, like, if you go and move, because moving is a big deal. Like, when I moved, I thought to myself, well, if I don't like it here, I'll move again.
Yeah.
If it turns out it's not the right place. That initial move was a big move. I had lived in the same place for 30 something years, and that took me a long time to make that move. But once I did it, I was like, well, if I don't like it here, or if it doesn't work out, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I love the way you put it, Jan, because you remind me, listening to you, it reminds me of the simplest decisions. Should I take my shower right now? Maybe leave it for later? And if I'm thinking about it twice, I go straight away underwater. I say, here, I'm taking my shower, so that I'm not overthinking. And it goes all the way to my most important decision, which was leaving my country 20 years ago exactly. Leaving my country, I was not feeling at home any longer. I was not feeling so well at my place of work. I was a university professor. I loved my career. I loved my job. But I started feeling like some sort of burnout. And at home, I was not feeling as comfortable as before. Okay. I had the opportunity to leave. I did not leave home. I did not leave my work. I left my country altogether. And I often say, I took my passport, left behind my car, our house, our family, our everyone. Bye. I'm going elsewhere. I hear a call. And I went. And I've been here, there, anywhere, everywhere, including back home for the last 20 years, feeling how much I have learned and how simple the decision was after all.
Mm.
Move.
It's an
As Jan
interesting.
said, move. I moved.
Yeah. So the first decision was to be a decision maker, and to really not have or attach any any conditions on outcome. And I think that's what most people do. And have you ever heard that perfectionism is just the highest form of self-righteous procrastination?
No, first time I hear it.
So the point is that perfectionists never actually have to pull the trigger, right? Nothing will ever be perfect in this human form.
Mm-hmm.
Perfection comes later when we're in the spirit form, or whatever you believe. But the point is that while you're using this measurement tool called perfectionism, it's just you're procrastinating. You're putting off doing what you know needs to be done, or some other way of demonstrating to other people that you're from a higher level of thinking. Because I won't do anything unless it's perfect, right? Well, the immediate thought after that is then you probably don't ever do anything, do you?
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Well, I see it in business all the time when I talk to people, Bill and Mouhiba, because they'll sit there and they'll go, well, I can't do this because I don't have a website. And I'll be like, or my website's not perfect, or, kind of thing. And I always say that, or, I'm like, my website's been perpetually evolving. Like, it never stays the same. And, and it's not the idea. I mean, or I don't know enough to do that. And then you realize that there's always going to be somebody who knows more than you, and probably people who don't know as much. But if you don't know it, you then just say, well, I don't know the answer. I'll get you the answer.
Yeah.
Like, that was a huge liberating moment for me when I was going to give a talk and I was really nervous. And a friend of mine said to me, if you don't know, you just say you don't know. Like, and then just say, if you're really interested, I'll find out for you. I have I know where I can get the information for you. It was hugely liberating because I think there's a lot of pressure that comes from thinking you have to know everything all the time.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, fascinating what you're saying, because I was a university professor for half a century, if not more. I never went into class to give information. I used to say, even when information was very hard to get, I used to say, no, let's all of us come informed and let's discuss our information, check our information, see how valid it is, see how profound it is. Because if I'm here just to give you the information, you don't need me. You need me to go to read between the lines. And some of them would say, we can hardly read the lines, and you want us to read between the lines. And I would say, no, you will learn quick enough to read the lines. Reading between the lines needs interaction, needs coming together and, with completely opposite views, and checking what deeply resonates with me from all that we have been discussing. So that's exactly it. Yes. And we grow. This is how we grow. I used to say every time I left class, thank you for all the learning. I hope you got some of the learning I got, because it was fabulous. That's how I felt every time I went into class. Yeah.
It's amazing what you're saying, because essentially we can agree or disagree, whichever, that 99.44% of information is opinion. And if it is opinion and it's not verifiable fact, then we have all the room in the world to play until we get attached to our version of whatever the facts are. And the neatest part of today is that you will get ambiguous answers to almost any questions that you ask of the internet. You go looking for a factual bit of information, what you're seeing is what someone's opinion was at the time when they recorded the words to kind of put into place some historical comment about it. So the people that wrote the comment are presenting their opinions as facts. And since they're in an authoritative kind of an environment, used to be encyclopedias were like that, right? If it's in the encyclopedia, we can believe that this is well researched and thought out. And oh my God, 10 years later, it's not right. So in a world where if you can just adopt an attitude where you're pretty sure all we ever have to give each other is a starting point in a conversation where I say something I heard somewhere and you respond with something you heard somewhere. Now maybe we can actually think about it for a moment and we can examine whether or not it is something we can verify just with our own critical thinking and experience.
Critical thinking is the expression I used so often. I became sort of tagged the one who encourages critical thinking. I used to ask questions. Somebody would say, I'd say, no, thank you. According to a book or a person or a historian or whatever, that's you. That is your right to refer to whoever. But I would like to know what you think. After having read all these books and listened to all these people, what do you think? If I say women are inferior to men, what do you think? Not what some book tells you or what somebody told you. Just what do you think and what is your evidence to say this? And I would often say, as long as you are consistent, you are relevant, and there are no double standards, I can listen. It's only when I hear, oh, now there's a lot of contradiction in what is being said, let's avoid that. Go straight to a point, prove it, it makes sense. When we go into different theories according to what we want to prove, there I say no, because I used to teach history. Among the things I taught history. So I would say, please just take some sort of line of thinking and continue. That's what I used to say.
I love it. And the other thing that I'm thinking of right now, we could make a really good game out of each of us hearing something to more or less just trigger what we think we know and write it down independently, and then do that in a group of 7 or 8 different people, and here, the more than likely there will be myriad responses, and it won't be just one or two, but there'll be different things. And the critical thinking part then becomes when we put them all in a pile and no one owns what they wrote any longer. And one by one, we open them up and we read them to the entire group, and we respond to 3 questions. I'm making this up as I go along, so give me a little room here. They respond to 3 questions. The first question is, does it sound true? The second question is, if it's true, why does it need to be stated somewhere where you can learn to repeat it? And the third question is, what do you think the motivation of the person who wrote this particular report on the world had to gain by doing it the way that they did? Now, each one of those is not, do you agree with it or not agree with it? They're more engaging the critical thinking function, which is to question it, but not challenge it, because the challenge thing where, prove to me where did you hear that? No one really cares. That's how you shut down a conversation, right? But let's talk about it for a moment. Is it true? Does it sound correct and right? And why did they write it the way that they did?
Yes.
And if nobody owns what they wrote on the paper, and then after you get into it, they won't even remember what they wrote on the paper.
I love the way you put it when you speak of play. Words you have used game, you have used critical thinking.
Yes.
The more people sound serious, they have something extraordinary to tell me, be it a politician, be it a lawyer, be it an unskilled worker, all the same. They sound unbelievably serious. I find it funny. All of a sudden, I go the other way. I say, are they taking themselves seriously? Who are they fooling? Who are they fooling? I've spoken sometimes to my, unskilled worker who comes for plumbery, and he would be lecturing me on this and that, and I would be amused. I say, wow, self-confidence, true self-confidence. And it goes all the way to the top politicians when they start saying, listen to this. And I say, just prepare yourself to some, excuse you, me, total nonsense. It's coming. I know it's coming, because the minute they go like, let's be serious, I say, no, go the other way. It's going to be just hilarious. That's how I think about it. So I love the way you put it when you speak of play, of game, of don't take it too seriously. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I'm going to take away a little something, Mouhiba, and that is that whenever I hear somebody say, well, listen to this, or let me tell you what we know, or something like that, I'm going to be thrown to hearing, well, here comes some nonsense, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for it. I'm expecting you to take this with no questioning, because I'm telling you that it is the undisputed, qualified, completely vetted truth. There is no way that you can impeach this under any circumstances.
Indeed, absolutely true. And I start smiling. This is when I start smiling.
I like it. I think the challenge, in those situations when somebody is stating the undisputed truth, they're really putting on notice. Anyone that's going to stand up and challenge this, you better have your P's and Q's lined up, because you're going to look foolish if you don't agree. And I think that is the lowest form of coercion,
Yes.
To challenge someone before they even open their mouth and dare them. What does that say to the entire group? I mean, how does that open up anything for an open discussion?
And I know how risky it is, because I've gone through such risks by saying, I happen to disagree. And all the heads would turn around and say, Here she goes. Here she goes. One more time, risking her whole career. And I would say, simple as that. I would say it simply. I happen to think, for example, deadlines. The boss is always ready to tell you, you should finish marking papers by tomorrow. So I say, no. And my colleagues go like, she's right, but I couldn't say it. So I say, no, we can't do that. Deadlines are determined by the number of copies that we need to mark properly. So if you don't mind, it will not be tomorrow, by the day after. With a smile. Can't be tomorrow. We're not doing it because it can't be. Simple.
So I'm hearing an unflappable confidence in that however the world responds to you, not to you in person, or if you've made your mind up that the arbitrary nature of the rules, the policies, the procedures, they're all out there for someone to take issue with a behavior. And there are so many of those that don't agree with each other, they'll always be able to find something to put you in your place. Unless you've decided the place that you have is your sanctuary and you're unmessable,
You use the right word, arbitrary.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot turn to someone and say, you will finish this by tomorrow. Who am I? Including me being the boss, who am I to tell someone who is going to do the job, it needs to be done by tomorrow, so you better do it?
Yes.
No. The arbitrary nature of deadlines are what sometimes pushes people out of their jobs. They can't do it. And then we are just sorry for all these people who have burnouts. I associate burnouts to these strict rules that do not simply go to the people concerned. How much time do you need? 4 days. Could we make it 3? Yeah, it's possible. But to go and say, you do it in 2 days, who are you? Including the boss, who are you? And that is the arbitrary you mentioned, which I like, yeah.
Yes.
I like to question the arbitrary.
Yeah, some rules are made just to be followed. They don't have to be logical. They don't have to report to any greater good. They are just there to establish the authority and the follower.
I just add, they don't have to be. They don't have to be in the first place.
And I like that as kind of a retort to somebody who asks you something that doesn't make sense. Now, why would I do a thing like that? When I know with my 35 years of instruction, when I have 28 papers to grade, for me to do it in a quality manner that I can actually get inside the mind of the person who did the writing, that I'm going to need at least 2 more days, not 1 more day. I'm going to need 2 more days if you want to promise for me when it's going to actually be finished. Now, I may beat that promise, but in the meantime, that's what I say I need.
Yeah. And it's simple. I go back to simplicity. It's transparency. It's simplicity. It's not arguing. It's not even worth arguing.
Yes.
No argument. No. So, put simply, and I often say, put simply, it's going to require 2 more days. Simple.
I love it. You know what that brings to mind? Are you familiar with Mary Poppins?
Yes, quite familiar.
Yes. So Mary Poppins is asked to explain why she did something, and she said, I never explain anything.
Yeah. Simple.
Next.
Simple. What for?
Jan, do you need to get a little drink of water?
No, I'm okay. No, I was just thinking that if anything, I think what you need to do is I always say like if you really only need 1 day, you say you need 2 days and then you put it in early. So how long will it take to do this project? Always err on the side of too much time versus too little time and having to go back and then say, I ran out of time. So that's,
Well, I love, that we as human beings devise strategies that seem like they
Yes.
work for us.
well, I
However,
think it looks better I think it
of
looks
course,
better to hand it in before you said it was going to be, as opposed to keep extending because all of a sudden you weren't able to do it. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this is, and always basically depending on the size of the project, assume that it's going to be probably more complicated. It might take you more time than you actually allotted because you might not have been thinking of all the different nuances at the time. It's just
Uh,
my,
on the one hand, I can tell you that many organizations do appreciate people who are never late. However, along the lines of perfectionism, many of those people never deliver. Okay. So, in my experience, especially in large organizations in manufacturing, when I had people that worked for me, I told them, I want you to know that whatever you do or don't do today, no one's going to die. Okay. And I'd look around the room and I'd wait for somebody to take issue with me. But you don't understand. This is how we've always been told. We have to do this, And I said, well, let me ask you a question. How many times during the course of a day do you get interrupted on all the other things that you have to do? And so I asked each of them, whenever you are given a task by somebody else, ask them to tell you how important is that you get this right away. Can you wait until the end of the day? Can you wait until tomorrow? Will those things work for you? I do have my plans for the rest of the day. I will change them, for the appropriate, you know, intensity of the deadline. But at the same time, people didn't promise when they would get it done. They promised they would give it their best attention,
Mhm.
which is a different paradigm
No,
than under promising and over delivering, or over promising and under delivering, which is the way most organizations work. And management prefers the people that under promise and over deliver because they know they can count on them to beat their deadlines for the most part. But again, we're talking about, is that a simple approach, or is that a strategy to get you in and out of a conversation quickly? Either one way or the other, because I think they both are to accomplish the same thing. Let's make this conversation go away so I can get back to what's really important to me again. Sometimes, not specifically talking about you in particular, Jan. I'm just saying when people always respond the same way, there's something that worked for them somewhere along the way and they got rewarded for it, in my opinion. Otherwise, they would have been trained to do something else by a result that they don't like, maybe.
uh, I love the word you have used, strategies,
Yeah.
because strategies is a key word. I learned it for twice. First, when people are working for me, I noticed for some, if I said, could you do this? The person would immediately say, can I do it tomorrow? So I learned this as a strategy. If I want something done tomorrow, I would simply say, could you possibly do this, please? And the person immediately went on tomorrow, which is my first request, actually. So, strategy is a key word. I have also used it with my connection to others. For example, if somebody says, okay, we are leaving in 10 minutes, I would go crazy. I'm extremely slow. If somebody said, we will go, okay, we will leave in half an hour, I would go crazy. I am still extremely slow.
Yeah.
So I've asked anyone going out with me, could you just give me an hour, a time? Say we will go out at 5, and you are not concerned with how much time I need to get ready. And this has worked beautifully well.
Yeah.
Beautifully well with me. I know at 5 I would be sitting, waiting, I'm ready. So it's strategies that we listen to, that we detect, that are revealed to us, and that connect us beautifully well to the other, be it our boss, our team, our partners, the people we like, the people we love to be with. These are strategies that work. When they work, wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
yeah, I just wanted to comment on that for
Sure.
a second. So first of all, I love that, Mouhiba, because what you made me think of is that first of all, it's not a cookie cutter kind of thing. You have to remember that you're working with people and that each person responds differently and each person works differently. So you can't think like these when you talk about blanket rules to sit there and say that every teacher needs to get in their papers by a certain date doesn't necessarily I mean, you could say this is approximately when I want them and then be willing to be a little flexible depending on that teacher and let's say how they grade or what type of tests they're grading. That's also very different having taught for a while, whether it was something where people wrote essays versus multiple choice and then it was just checking a table and it didn't require anything to grade at all. So you have to look at each person individually and you have to look at to make overall kind of statements like that you assume are going to fit everybody is never going to work.
True,
I
very
think
true.
that the other part of that, pardon me for 1 second, I just a thought I wanted to share about it. Employees aren't the only ones who have strategies. Employers do too. And, for instance, a great story that I always enjoyed about Henry Kissinger, when Henry Kissinger was Secretary of State for Richard Nixon, he had a big speech that he was supposed to deliver to the United Nations. And he had a young lady who was new on his staff who he asked her to draft his speech. And if you know the story, it's a good one. So
No.
so the woman stays up all night long and she writes this speech to get it to him within a reasonable period of time. And he takes it from her and he folds it in half and he looks at her and he said, "Is this your best work?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. I think it's a good speech. Is this your best work?" And she said, "I think I can do better." So he handed it back to her. And then the next day, it was kind of the same thing. She'd stayed up all night. She did everything she possibly could. And she handed it back to Dr. Kissinger. And she said, "Here's your speech, Dr. Kissinger." And he said, "Is this your best work? Is this the very best that you can do?" And she said, "Yes, it is." And he said, "Are you sure?" And she
Mm.
said, "Well, maybe I'm not that sure." "Okay, very good. Thank you for being honest." And so she does it. They do this like 3 or 4 more times. And finally, she comes out of her chair. She hands the paper to him and she says, "Dr. Kissinger, if you don't think this is any good, then I'm in the wrong job." And he said, "Fine, I'll read it now."
Worth reading, worth reading.
Yep.
And, it's when my little ones, I've got twins, 2 boys, and when they were little ones and they went to school, I used to say, do your best. Whether your best gets you an A, brilliant. Even if your best gets you an F, I
Yes.
will hug you. And I would say, sorry, next time will be better. But do your best.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then it's not worth anything. Even a B would be not good enough, but it's good enough. Your F would be good enough. It would draw my compassion, my empathy, my love for you and say, we'll try better next time. That's
Yeah.
it. Do your best, regardless of what then happens, what others think, whatever. That's it. That's my best. I can't do more. I can't do better. I've done it. Yeah.
I love it. I also have a history of recalling several times where I was able to renegotiate my grade up simply by standing at the edge of the desk and saying, "Ask me any question you want to about this material. And if I can't answer your question, then I deserve the grade you gave me. And if I can
Brilliant.
answer your question, then I deserve a better grade than what you gave me. You gave me a B plus and I did A work." And so they do that. And, I was so sure that I had memorized the facts. Did I understand it? Maybe not. But the point is by being, that in willing to engage, let's try it again now and see how it works out. And I had some great teachers that were more interested in constructing my ability to back up what I had answered. And when I had an answer that disagreed with what the book said the answer should be, they were really loved it and my thinking behind it. And
Yes,
I had two
yes.
teachers once tell me, that different teachers. One, I was taking an oral exam on the Third Reich, and my professor Terry Enos, as a matter of fact, he said, "I love your ability to articulate not only what was being said at the time, but the understanding of all the people that are involved." And he said, "For that reason, I'm going to give you the highest grade I've ever given anybody on an oral exam."
Brilliant. That is critical thinking.
Yeah.
That's critical thinking. You were rewarded for critical thinking. I remember once, just after the Arab Spring, giving my students. I was then teaching international relations, and I gave my students a simple question. Simple questions. I had different groups, so the questions went like, could the Arab Spring been avoided? What has the Arab Spring achieved? And
Yes.
funny enough, they found it funny enough. It wasn't funny enough for me. The people who got A had written totally different papers, contradictory papers.
Yes.
Uh, the very people who wrote, of course, it was something fantastic, and those who wrote, what a disaster, for writing good papers, they got the highest grades. They got A's. And this somehow shocked my students, or didn't, because I said critical thinking. This is why I always say no double standards. Had a coherently written paper from one particular point of view, discussing the other point of view as not really valid, and going on to the conclusion. The other had written exactly the opposite of
Yeah.
that and got A's. Because what I was checking was their capacity to discuss, their capacity to have a critical mind, to view and review, not to tell me what people thought of as facts.
Yes.
Because you said it, there are no facts, but perspectives on, viewpoints on, and an attempt to prove a point through that consistency and that sort of coherent mind. That's it.
I will tell you, it's clear to me you were an extraordinary teacher. Okay. And I
That's
think, yeah. So I think at the essence of teaching is a commitment to service as opposed to a commitment to anything else that you could be committed to, standing in front of a group of all these minds that are just waiting for you to say something that they can jump on. And I can tell you that some of my best teachers did not improve my grade, but they gave me more information. I had a guy, Leo Savoy, who was my world history instructor in ninth grade. Wonderful man, very good at presenting material and all the rest of that. And so one day in his class, I went up and I tried to argue a point with him. And he said, "You know what, Bill?" He said, "You make all the sense in the world." He said, "But at the time that you answered the question, you were wrong." And I said, "Really?" I said, "You're not interested in what I know?" He said, "No, you're just a C student." And I walked away. He knocked me right off of my center.
Yeah,
He
sure.
was basically telling me long before there was a Dunning-Kruger effect to talk about that I thought I was smarter or better than I actually was, and I really needed to take a look at that. And how better to knock me alive than to say, "You're just a C student." What?
That
It was
would
brilliant.
that would shock anyone.
I know.
That would
Who
shock
wants to
anyone.
be known as a C student? Until later on, I found out the world is run by C students. So,
Oh, sometimes F students. I'm sorry
yeah,
to say.
exactly. Didn't graduate.
You know it, because what they say is so foolish. You say, I know, this is what they must have said to get their F. So, yes, absolutely foolishness. But then again, it's a pleasure to have the luxury of laughing at
Yes.
these. Laughing, yes, because what else can you do? What else can you do?
So here's another personal anecdote, not to spend too much time on it, but there was something along the way I was very, very concerned about being able to, like, was I really smart enough to do college level work? And it turned out, that I didn't finish a lot of my studies because A, I was bored with them. I mean, who wants to memorize stuff, right? Well, some people do, but that wasn't for me. But I was in the middle of another class. This was a political science class. The guy's name was Dave Holdridge. Wonderful, wonderful man. He stood up at the beginning of the class and he started it off and said, "Don't be concerned about what you've forgotten that's going to be on the test, because that's not important. Do be concerned about what you've remembered and what it means." So a whole lot of freedom, at that point. Whatever grade you get on an objective exam that's asking you memory test questions, he said, these are the tools that we have to work with. But if you will leave this class knowing and understanding and being able to explain the distinctions between this and this, we talked about, economics, we talked about political ideology, we talked about, there's this so-called crisscross between the Republican and Democratic Party after World War II, which is really not interesting. However, if you come away understanding that in a conversation, all the rules can be tossed out the window, and what you need to really understand is, why do the concepts work? What's the context of it? As opposed to what are the facts that you can remember and get 100 of them right.
Absolutely true. I used to teach history, and I would tell my students, what I don't remember without my notes, you don't need to remember. I will not be marking your papers carrying notes with me. So if I remember something, it means it's important. You are bound to remember it. I used to teach history saying, I'm going to teach you what does not exist in history books. I will tell you about the role of women. I will
Yes.
tell you about the role of dogs sent as kamikaze. I will talk to you about the effect on the environment, which was the concern of nobody. And sometimes I wonder if things have changed. So that's what is important. As for the number of weapons, the introduction of flying engines, all of that is too mechanical. You can find it in any history book.
Yep.
At the heart of the war, the effect on mothers. When we speak of the role of mothers, it's also the pain of mothers. Few women participated fully in the battlefield in World War One or World
Right.
War Two, but the pain, the impact on these women who had kids flown to get killed. Can you imagine the pain? Let's live it. Let's go through it. That
Yeah.
is teaching history, so that it doesn't repeat itself. And why should we glorify as great moments in world history the victory over those, the victory over the others? Why glorify these wars in the first place? I ask them as a question. Why do you think it should be glorified? Who is gaining anything out of it?
Well, and I love that, because in the context of what was going on then, was it glorified? How do you think that people generally felt about this in those days? Take a look at what their economic status was. How many of them ate 3 meals a day? How many of them didn't eat every day? How many of them, died by the time they were 17 years old? Like, just keep layering on, where you're now no longer just learning, like, well, what happened in 1066? I mean, anybody that's ever studied history is immediately going to have a thought, but I'll say, no, not that. Now tell me what else was going on in 1066.
To your point, Bill, I think that's what I loved about Mouhiba's chapter in
Yeah.
the beginning, when she talks about, her culture and why people were the way they were. And then, and then leaving and realizing, like, looking at that and saying, well, so and so acts this way, why do they act this way based on where they lived? And so it's much more than just, like, we were talking about the whole conversation, which was about facts. It's much more looking beneath the surface of the facts to delve a little deeper into that. These were human beings that were
Yes.
experiencing. These were mothers, children, other people who were experiencing these situations and these tragedies. It wasn't just a whole bunch of like, the fact that they, how many, just abstract numbers or statistics, and, and in, part of what you described was why I didn't go to medical school was because they were really good. Doctors were really good at memorizing facts, and I could have done it, but they had no problem solving skills, and they didn't cultivate that at least in traditional medical school in the United States. That wasn't what it was about. It was about, okay, what these facts, this diagnosis. And I'm like,
and stopping when they get to the first one.
That's right. And that wasn't me. And so I decided not to go. I was like, this isn't me. I don't want to sit there and memorize a whole bunch of facts. And I'm still like, people still tell me that today. You should have gone to medical school. And I'm like, nah, I shouldn't have gone to medical school. It was like one of the best decisions of my life. I never questioned that decision, that choice I made.
Yeah.
But, I think that's, it's a difference between looking for wisdom and looking for knowledge, or facts. Like there is something about looking deeper beyond, looking for through the threads that unite, or the threads that kind of weave beneath the surface versus looking at the obvious.
Yeah.
And being open. I love the word deeper. I believe in depth. I have traveled throughout countries and lived here and there and everywhere. And every time I went somewhere, I never thought my culture has taught me absolute truth. No, I was open. I often say I have collected a bouquet of flowers picked up in any culture. And it makes sense to me because it's my bouquet. It's whom I have become. Picking up wonderful things. They are always in one culture, in any culture. Something unique that you pick up and say, oh, I can make it coherent and I can make the whole bouquet fit me, resonate with me. And so that's what's done. I've never thought a culture was higher, lower than my own. Never, ever, despite all the attempts to make one culture more hegemonic than the other. Not with me, because I am much more for cultures being on that same level, different, but horizontally different, not vertically different. No, none of that. And so, yes, when we open up to something different, we do get a lot from everywhere and anywhere else than our own culture, our own viewpoint, our own small little world.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm absolutely loving the whole thought of if you could be open enough to be able to imagine yourself in the shoes of somebody whose culture has given them specific information and nothing beyond that, what would your appropriate behavior look like? Wouldn't it look a lot like how they are behaving? If you consider that all human beings at some level possess a modicum of the same kinds of skills, including critical thinking, that what challenges critical thinking is fewer rules about how to behave, fewer rules how to think, fewer rules as to how to interact socially with each other. And then the whole notion of wisdom. We're, in my opinion, in a situation where there is very little value placed on wisdom. These days, it's more about how do I feel about me, and what do I want in my life? Everybody else can take care of themselves, and I'm going to worry about, having a good time while I'm here. I'm distilling this down, but when we speak about cultures generally, we're wrong. There's not like a whole culture that feels that way. There's subsets of the culture. And that's balanced off by people who are very devout in their religious practices, in their way that they apply themselves as good human beings. If in the cases where they don't have a a sense of a higher power or something greater than themselves, they at least understand that you do unto other people as you would have them do unto you. And the major thing that I think that comes out of understanding what wisdom actually is, in our culture, we do not revere people that are 80 and 90 years old who speak in very, very small sentences, but they're powerful, or they speak in silence, which is completely powerful. It gives you an opportunity to consider for a moment something other than what would normally be put into that place. But the fundamental definition of wisdom, where wisdom comes from.
From wise people.
Well, how they get wise is wisdom comes from good judgment. And where does good judgment come from? Experience.
That's what I was going to say.
And where does experience come from? Well, bad judgment. So we kind of take away, the freedom for people to get things wrong. And then they have to go through life acting as if they've got it handled when they really don't.
Yeah, you've reminded me of experience. What I think of experience, I've often said experience serves no one. If I experience something, okay, I know it, so I'm not going to repeat it. I know what is good in it, what is bad, so done. So this experience is not going to help me since I have already gone through the experience. I can't experience the experience. The same thing about others. How can I convince anyone? How can I talk to anyone about my experience? It's not going to work.
No.
So it's not going to help others unless they go through their own experience of whatever. So what we call experience is quite doubtful. And this is why wise people spend their whole life until the very last day thinking, well, it's time for me to learn. Thank God I have learned this. I remember my father, who died at the age of 94, saying this, and we just laughed and laughed. And he would say, good lesson for me to learn. And we would say, my God, he is 90, he's talking about good lessons he needs to learn. I mean, when is it going to stop? And it's true. If it ever stops, it means we have stopped living altogether. So yes, we learn. We just learn. We learn and we continue learning.
Well, part of what I love that you just shared, Mouhiba, is this whole idea of, I think parenting now has become a series of how can I prevent my children from making any mistakes? Like that kind of attitude. And so you hover and you kind of do everything for them because you don't want them to have to experience that negativity or that whatever the lesson is, but yet they're not able to cope with anything once they leave because they have never had to solve any problems or to experience the negative. Yeah. I was having this conversation with somebody I knew one day, and I loved her dearly, and she had two kids in high school, junior high school and high school. And she said, she was in a rush. And I was like, where are you going? She's like, oh, I have to go drop off my son's homework because he forgot it. And I remember thinking to myself, if that was me, I would have forgotten my homework. I would have learned the lesson that I needed to remember my homework going forward. And my mother would never have brought me my homework. And it wasn't, and it was such a different way to think. It was like this thing of, there are no consequences to your behavior. And one of the things you said, Bill, is I think that what religion taught people in a lot of cases, and not so good, in some cases negative, but religion teaches, and the basis of most religion is instilling some sort of value to people. They kind of give people a standard of values. You should be, most religions at the base, you should be kind, you should help your neighbor, you should treat your parents with respect and, or elders with an element of respect. And so basically, you should honor the earth. You should be grateful. Basically, it's a series of values, whether you believe, and I'm not saying you don't believe in a higher power, but that was what happened when, let's say, religion got to be out of fashion, or where people didn't have some place to call, I mean, either your culture has to instill it, or religion, or something else has to, maybe your parents or whatever, but somebody has to instill those values in you.
Yeah, it's the usual, the eternal problem of, should people stick to religion and then they have got a set of rules? Should people just stick to moral, ethical rules? We never know. What I have noticed is that most people in any religion manage to turn it upside down, exactly upside down.
Oh, I know.
It's fascinating how human beings manage to listen carefully, very carefully, to what their religion says, and then say, okay, so what I understand is turn it upside down. And the examples are so obvious. In my own religion, we fast. We fast to understand poverty, to understand the suffering of the poor. So fasting has become an opportunity to eat well. Because you have been fasting all day, at the end of the day, you better eat a very good meal. When I think of Christianity, I think of Christianity, and in Christianity, when you look at Jesus Christ, having a little cloth there covering him and being there, poor, the poorest you could ever be. When you compare this to the church, higher clergy, the Pope, and the higher clergy, what do you see? Is there anything that reminds you of Christ? When you think of Hinduism, for example, and you think that you cannot kill a mosquito, so you have water going through cloth so that not a mosquito would get into you. And then they start killing one another in a great collective movement. So religions, please help me. You might have an example to help me with your own religions, seeing this weird way of turning it upside down. You might have something in mind, because do you happen to have some example of this? Of how you
do. Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that but I know that there are those who believe that originally, like, the laws of kosherous, or keeping, or the way you slaughter animals, yes, it was humane and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of the other laws of mixing milk and meat and all this other stuff happens to be very good for digestion, but have been, the interpretation of them, you might say, has gotten very, manipulated through the years. So, I mean, I think that is one example where laws that were created thousands and thousands of years ago may have to evolve depending on the times. And it's always the interpretation of those laws where it gets messy. That's the best way to put it, where it gets messy, because it does. It gets very messy.
Well, whenever you are in the process of overthrowing a way of thinking, it's very messy entirely. Sometimes it's messy to the point where people's heads come off, So, but if I think in terms of let's just say where there's a void and people have kind of lost their trust in standard religions, all of them, not one or two, but pretty much all of them. And that all the institutions have now no longer have that built-in integrity and trust. What do you do in place of that? Well, you build out a society that's based on nihilism, based on, as you said before, hegemony. It's based on who's better than who, and it's based on the virtuous behavior that gets you, good feelings, from your peers. Okay, has nothing to do with how you conduct your life. It has everything to do with how you think people think you're conducting your life, which is just really a ridiculous way to try to live. And as a result of that, you get people that can justify in any moment any behavior that they want to, do, because they're pure of heart. And killing these people is okay because it gets my point across to the rest of you. And what it really all comes down to is that when people get tired of that and it has no more energy or gas and isn't giving them the kind of accolades from their peers that they really got in the beginning when they came out and said things that sounded bold and sounded, my goodness, I can't believe you're saying that. What would your parents think? Well, don't tell them because I can't go home anymore. But see, that's the new religion. It's the new religion of self. It's the new religion of aggrandizement. And since there was nothing else for them to attach to, it has to run out of gas very quickly, especially when you take away, the audience. Without an audience to perform to, the acts no longer have any purpose in the world, which is when people finally decide there must be more, right? And sometimes that happens when they're young. Sometimes it happens when they're in their 40s. And sometimes it takes till they're 90 years old, to be able to say, I think I finally know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, good time. It's high time.
Yes.
Maybe I should do something about it. Now I'm only 90. So it's, these are all just we take them seriously, less seriously. It depends on the moment, really.
Yeah.
Sometimes they reach these high level of ridicule that you can't do anything about it, but just smile, hopelessly smile.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to say or nothing more to do. Just smile.
Yeah. Quietly smile.
Quietly smile indeed.
What a wonderful way to spend an hour.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jan.
Mouhiba, will you come back?
Anytime.
Excellent. Jan and I just love, sharing our conversation. We're good if we're alone, but we also really love having other folks involved. The energy is wonderful. And coming all the way from Oman today, I think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation with you, and Jan knows that when we were together, Jan and I, we had the feeling we wanted to talk again. Remember, Jan? And I have the same feeling now. Bill is with us more so. So I'd be honored and so grateful.
Well, we'll be grateful too. I have one more request of you. Do you have any kind of parting thoughts or anything reflecting on the chapter that you wrote for Simply Becoming that you would like to leave people to kind of dwell on or to ponder, or maybe is a good reason for them to hop on Amazon and get a copy of the book?
Yes, it's how to live simply. We tend to complicate everything. We tend to think everything costs too much. Everything is too difficult to go on to. No. And I explain in my chapter that you can be so happy, so happy. You can afford so many activities because they are free of charge. And you can do so many things because you just do it. You want to do it, just do it. Life is unbelievably simple. Just open your eyes to the simplicity and it's there. And it can accompany us throughout life at any age. That's my final thought for now.
Beautiful thought for now. Thank you so much. Jan, how about you?
I mean, I always love speaking with Mouhiba because I love that, because I tend to complicate a lot of stuff. So I need her to remind me that things are a lot simpler than I believe a lot of the time. And her attitude on life is always a true gift. But I'll keep it very simple, as our request for always is let people that out there in the world, let them know that you value them. Send them, 3 words. Those 3 words, I value you. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
You're right. You're right, Jan. You're
so
right.
Perfect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me just remind you, we are lighting the candle. It has been my privilege to spend time with my partner in empowerment, Jan Jeremias, and my new partner in empowerment, Dr. Mouhiba Jamousi. Thank you very much, ladies, and thanks all of you for, I love you all madly. Have a wonderful week, and then come tell me all about it, please.
Have a great day.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, A World That Works, part of the Xvadio podcast network. You can catch every episode of Lighting the Candle, as well as the rest of the network, at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.